The Stainless Works catted downpipe here is going to appeal to those 2015 and newer EcoBoost owners out there who are on the search for more power and sound out of their 2.7 or 3.5 liter truck while maintaining the factory exhaust or an aftermarket exhaust system that features the factory style connection. Now the Stainless Works kit here will also feature that premium 304 grade stainless steel from tip to tip, in addition to a set of high flow catalytic converters, all for just south of $1,000. Install isn't too crazy here, but because there is still a decent amount of work involved, we're going to knock this one up to a middle of the road 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, with more info on that later to follow in the video. So why replace your factory downpipes with an aftermarket option like this piece here from Stainless Works? Well, for a majority of people out there, the stock catted downpipe is just fine, of course. However, just like anything else in the aftermarket car or truck world, there are people who aren't quite satisfied with the factory components and want more. What does that mean? Well, more power, more torque, and more sound, and the S&W option here will deliver on all three. And with that said, we did want to see what kind of power gains were possible when using the Stainless Works catted setup in conjunction with the recommended tune on our 3.5 EcoBoost here in the shop. So we established a baseline number first, installed the downpipe, and uploaded the tune, reran the truck on the same day, and here are those results. Baseline run, basically bone stock on 93 octane. The truck made 305 horsepower and 352 pound-feet of torque to the rear tires. With all of the modifications and the Unleashed tune installed, the truck is now making 379 horsepower and 422 pound-feet of torque to the rear wheels. Now that's good for peak gains of 74 horsepower and 71 pound-feet of torque over the baseline numbers, and gains of as much as 88 horsepower and 98 pound-feet of torque under the curve. So when dealing with a turbocharged application like the 3.5 or 2.7 EcoBoost power plant, there are going to be a few key ingredients to making big, consistent power over those factory or baseline numbers. The tune is always going to be the biggie here with this particular application, as is things like downpipes, intakes, exhaust to a lesser extent. And of course, we can't forget about things like a larger core intercooler, for instance, to help keep those charge temperatures down and keep repeatable big power more consistent. The aftermarket larger diameter downpipe is an important modification, especially on a turbocharged truck like the EcoBoost, because they are going to help relieve excess back pressure, which is really what you want to do here with a turbo setup, because you're going to get even quicker spool from those already quick spooling factory turbos, and you're also going to help achieve a greater pressure drop after the turbos themselves. You're also going to help out with those turbulent exhaust gases dissipate quicker, basically going to make for more power at the end of the day to your rear wheels. Now obviously an off-road version or catless version would help even more in reducing back pressure, and Stainless Works does offer a set here on the site. It's going to be a little bit more affordable than the catted version that we're talking about here today. Now, along with more power, another byproduct of switching out your factory downpipe in favor of an aftermarket option will be the noticeable increase in sound and volume, including a little bit more turbo noise from your setup. Now, if you're a fan of this, great, and as you would imagine, pairing this up with an aftermarket catback will only multiply that sound. If you're not a big fan of that twin turbo V6 sound, then you might want to stick with just pairing this up to your factory catback exhaust, which you can totally do. It's definitely going to help keep things toned down a little bit more when compared to an aftermarket option. But with the power and sound benefits covered up, let's touch on the physical construction and materials here of the Stainless Works option. And if you're familiar with the brand, then you know everything is going to be top notch. That does include premium grade 304 stainless steel throughout, 3-inch mandrel bent tubing for 99% of this system. It does neck down a little bit near the turbos, in addition to absolutely beautiful welds and the Y-pipe. Just a really nicely made system. All of your O2s have been pre-welded for you. Just a really quality stuff here from the American-made company. Also keep in mind here, guys, that this does also feature Stainless Works Factory Connect style connection or flange, meaning, again, it will work with your factory catback or a separate aftermarket catback that connects in the factory style way. Stainless Works does also offer what they call their Performance Connect, which is basically just a little bit larger diameter all the way through. However, that is designed to work with a corresponding Stainless Works Performance Connect catback. So if that's something you're interested in, just keep in mind you will need to buy a separate catback also from Stainless Works to make that all work. Switching gears, let's get into the installation, guys. And honestly, this isn't gonna be the hardest job in the world, but it's also not the easiest either. So that's why it's a good 2 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter here, and maybe a half a day or less in the shop or garage to get everything knocked out. And to give you a better idea of what's involved here for this job, here is a detailed walkthrough along with the tool breakdown.
All right, now let's get started with the install of our Stainless Works downpipes on our 15 to 18 EcoBoost F150. Now this is a relatively easy install. We're gonna go ahead and get our cross members out of the way. We have to support our transmission with a jack stand, and then we're gonna go ahead and unbolt our downpipes from our factory turbos and exhaust. But before all that, we're gonna have to lower our truck back down, and we're gonna go ahead and unplug our 2 O2 sensors from the top. Now with an 8mm socket, we're gonna go ahead and remove this under tray here. I wouldn't really call this a skid plate because it's not gonna really protect from any rocks or anything like that. After that, we're gonna go ahead and get this support and our cross member out of the way, but we're gonna support our transmission with a pull jack first. All right, now let's go ahead and just get this cover out of the way. Now with my small impact gun and a 13mm socket, we're gonna go ahead and get this small brace out of the way, and then we'll move on to getting our cross member out. All right, now with a 10mm socket, we got a few heat shields that we got to disconnect. Now we got 2 bolts, one up here and one on the passenger side. They're just 10mm bolt that comes down from the top. They attach the heat shields to the cross member to keep them from rattling around. We're gonna get those removed, plus 2 more bolts that connect a harness to our cross member that keeps it out of the way of the exhaust and any moving parts. Once we get those bolts out, we can go ahead and work on getting our transmission mount disconnected, and then we'll go ahead and pull our cross member out. All right, with our bigger impact gun and a 21mm socket, we're gonna go ahead and disconnect our transmission mount from the cross member. After that, we're gonna get our pull jack under here and support our transmission before we pull our cross member out. All right, now we are ready to get our cross member out, and we're gonna do that using a 15mm socket on the bolt side and a 18mm wrench on the nut side. There's 2 bolts on each side. We're gonna go ahead and get those out and drop our cross member down. We have to pull our transmission mount off of our transmission because the 2 hangers that secure our crossover pipe are mounted to that. So using a 15mm socket, we're going to remove the 4 bolts that secure it to our transmission. All right, now that we have our transmission mount, our cross member, and all that out of the way, we can finally start taking apart some exhaust. Using a 13mm socket, we're going to disconnect our factory cap back from our factory downpipes. Now, as you can see, you can go ahead and let your factory exhaust run on this cross brace that's right here on your frame. That doesn't unbolt, so it ain't gonna go nowhere. Now, with a small impact gun, a rather large extension, and a 15mm socket, we're gonna go ahead and start taking off the bolts that connect our downpipes to the back of our turbos. Now, you wanna take your time with this and maybe use a little penetrating oil to break them free, depending on how much rust is on your turbos. And as you can see with our new downpipes in comparison to our factory downpipes, the diameter of the pipes are very dramatic, especially here in our crossover area. They are a lot larger. As you can see, they do have smaller catalytic converters on them and different placements of our O2 sensors. Let's go ahead and get these installed in our truck now. All right, now we already transferred our O2 sensors over to our new downpipes. Now to do this, we used a 22mm wrench and just took our time. This, I suggest at home, would be a great time to go ahead and replace your O2 sensors since you already have it all apart. They are a little difficult to get to when this is all in the vehicle, and if your truck has some miles on it, it might be a good time to just swap them out anyway as preventive maintenance. Now I'm going to begin by slipping on the driver's side up into place first, loosely installing the nuts on top of the studs, and then moving on to the passenger side and crossover pipe all as one unit. Now that our downpipes are loosely installed on the back of our turbos, we can go ahead and get our transmission mount into place, and we're going to install this on top of our new clamp that also doubles as the hanger for our crossover pipe. Now we have to install our mount now, that way we can have our clamp positioned correctly to tighten it down. Now, using your same 15mm socket, go ahead and tighten them down. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and get our cross member back into place. This way we can put our transmission down on its own weight, and then we can go ahead and get our pipes perfectly lined up and tightened up. All right, now we have our transmission back down on its mount. We can go ahead, we can get our pipes lined up, give them the last few tweaks, and we can go ahead and start tightening everything down. Now to tighten them all down, we're gonna use the same 15mm socket we used to remove everything, and we're also gonna use that same 15mm socket to tighten up our two new clamps that came with the kit. Let's go ahead, get these adjusted, and start tightening everything down. All right, now that our turbo bolts are tightened up, we're gonna go ahead and tighten up our 2 clamps that come new in our kit. That's our crossover pipe and our passenger side downpipe where it connects to the crossover and Y pipe. Once we get those in, we can go ahead and get our 2 factory bolts in that connect our catback exhaust to our downpipe. Then we'll finish tightening up everything else and we'll be good to go. All right, now that our new downpipe is all tightened up and secured into place, we're gonna go ahead and finish wrapping up our loose ends. Now those consist of 10mm bolts that hold your heat shields down to your cross member. Our cross member bolts, we're gonna go ahead and get the nuts on them and tighten them down. Our trans mount bolts, we're gonna go ahead and tighten them down. Make sure we go back, we plug in all of our O2 sensors, the 2 down below and the 2 up top. We're gonna go ahead and get our final shield on the bottom, and then just go back and make sure everything is tightened back up, and we'll be ready to roll. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and put back in our trans mount nuts. There's just your 2 21mm nuts you took off earlier. We're gonna go ahead and get them reinstalled and then tighten down. After that, we're gonna go ahead and tighten down our cross member bolts. Now we're gonna get up our final little support brace here and our final skid plate. Then after that, all you gotta do is plug back in your O2 sensors and you're done. All right, now that wraps up the installation of our Stainless Works downpipes on our 15 to 18 F150 EcoBoost. Now for more parts and videos like these, make sure you give us a visit at AmericanTrucks.com.